I'm Mr. MegaManFan. This is Genesis Does, and this is a missed opportunity. This game is called Vixen 357, and it was made by Masaya Games. If you know Masaya, you know them for things like Moto Rotor, Hellfire, Langrisser, and even wacky shoot-em-ups like Choniki. But Vixen 357 never came out in North America, Europe, Australia, or anywhere that it could have been localized into English. Its only release was in Japan for Mega Drive on October 23rd, 1992. That's not for lack of trying, because there was actually a plan to localize it and release it in the United States, or at least in English-speaking territories, with a US price of $63 and other territories $70 by the team of Super Fighter. They do localizations for a lot of different things, going all the way back to the year 2006 when they released Beggar Prince for Mega Drive and Genesis, which I'm happy to say I have a copy of. So I know their work, I know their reputation, and I think they would have done a fine job with it. But for whatever reason, even though they were scheduled to go ahead with it, they canceled it. I don't know what the reason was. I've never seen any confirmation of why. Maybe they decided it was too text heavy. Maybe the fact that it's a tactical turn-based game would not have translated well. Maybe they thought it looked too much like anime, but then didn't have any actual anime behind it that fans would have supported it for. Maybe battery backup memory is a problem when you're producing a limited run of a cartridge, and that raises the cost above what it would have been profitable to make it. I just don't know. Here's what I do know though. The plot has been summarized in English even if it never got translated into English in the game, so I can tell you what this is supposed to be about as you watch all of these cutscenes. And this game has a lot of cutscenes before you even get to the gameplay. It's pretty epic. Ahem. In the year 2396, the nation of Merisma Harp completed development of the newest and most advanced line of combat operations robots, Vectors. Intended to protect planet Earth from alien invaders, these powerful weapons have been entrusted to Takuya Murasawa's Slash team for field testing. But when Merisma Harp's military installations suddenly came under attack by another nation, Slash Team was called to the front lines of battle. This young, fresh-faced group must now put the unproven Vectors to the ultimate test in a rush to unmask and defeat the enemy. Now, I did mention the battery backups a little bit ago, and that's important to this game because unlike some tactical role-playing games, this one involves permadeath. So, if you lose a character and you don't want to continue the game without them, you have to go back to a previous save. Otherwise, you don't get them back. They're gone forever. Would this have kept English-speaking players away from the game? I don't think so. We've seen permadeath before in other tactical-based games. In fact, one of the longest-running tactical role-playing games that's turn-based and has you moving units around a playfield to involve permadeath is Fire Emblem, and that series is hugely popular, arguably more so in Japan than the United States, but I would say it's well known in both places. Some of the games haven't been translated outside of Japan, but a large majority have, and one just got a very special release for Nintendo Switch within the last few months of recording this video, so I would say there's no problem with permadeath. It sucks. Some people may not like it, but gamers have already become used to that concept. If they die, they die. In fact, I would say, going all the way back to Final Fantasy VII, I got used to the idea of permadeath in video games because Aerith dies in FF7 and you can't get her back. I mean, you can hack her into the game, but then it causes bugs and glitches and problems that are really not too desirable for gameplay. So once she dies, Get over it. It's a plot point. It's supposed to happen. The game moves on whether you have her in your party or not. I guess that's what bothers people about permadeath in tactical games, though, is if it's not a plot point, why should you lose a character for no kind of plot advancement? But then that's what a battery backup is for. That's what save states are for. That's what going back and starting over again is for. If you don't like losing a character, then be more careful. Find a way to not let them die. Make better decisions in combat and use your units more effectively, and you won't lose a party member that you didn't want to lose. Or maybe accept that games that are artistic imitate life, and in life sometimes you lose people that you don't want to lose, and it sucks, and you grieve, and you find a way to move on. I don't think that's a wholly ridiculous concept in a video game. Video games are meant to be artistic, and sometimes they can be lifelike, and sometimes they can be surreal, and sometimes they can be absurd. And Vixen 357 looks like it has all of those elements in it. And the stylized anime influence that I see from the opening intro and cutscenes says there's great promise in this title that would have made it worth localizing. So why they abandoned the effort, I don't know. I mean, on the plus side, nobody's really out any money if they didn't take any pre-orders or they canceled whatever pre-orders there already were. It's not like it was a Kickstarter and they asked people to back it and then just pocketed the money and left. So take some small measure of justice from that, but I'd be curious to find out just how far they got with Vixen 357 before they ultimately gave up the effort, because all you really need, based on what I'm seeing here, and I could be wrong, I might be wrong, I'm freely admitting that, but if you translated that opening scroll of text, which seems to have been largely translated on Wikipedia already, and if you added some English menu options for moving your units around, and it even says some of the stuff here in English, it's only the text of the characters that's not translated, then you could move the units and do combat and make progress. I only can imagine that maybe there's so much dialogue and so many dialogue trees for each of the individual characters that they decided it was too expensive if they had to hire translators, and they didn't have an in-house team to do that. But this is Super Fighter Team we're talking about. Of course they would have translators. Of course they would have people fluent in Japanese in a way that I'm not. So it's mind-boggling. It's a missed opportunity. Everything about Vixen 357 says they should have done it. They could have done it. They were all prepared to 2 years ago before the pandemic, and then they just didn't do it. And sadly, there is no other Vixen 357 game. At least with Fire Emblem, if you can't play one game that hasn't been translated or that there's not a fan patch for, there's plenty of other Fire Emblem games in the series, so you have many other opportunities to enjoy it. Vixen 357 has no other games. The series started here, it ended here. Maybe that means it wasn't that popular or successful in Japan. That's a possibility too. Maybe they just decided it wasn't going to be worth it for something that wasn't really a big hit. I'm Mr. MegaManFan. This is Genesis Does. As always, thank you for watching, and I'm just bummed that Vixen 357 never got finished. Maybe it'll leak at some point.